The November 1st, 2023 meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. We'd ask the audience to join.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The next item is attendance. Mr. Dale, would you take care of that?
Larry Jones.
Present.
Kathy Postlewaite.
Present.
Jocelyn Hinshaw.
Present.
Chris Lake.
Present.
Steve Mundy.
Present.
All present.
Thank you, sir. Next item is the approval of the October 4th, 2023 minutes. Those were online and in your packet if you got a hard copy. Any questions or comments about the minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Postlewaite. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lake. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Next are continuance or withdrawals. We do have one continuance that we know of, and that is docket number 2023-39-DSV G Merrill at 190 West Pine Street, Zionsville, Indiana. It's being continued to the December 6th, 2023 meeting due to improper renotice. So could I have a motion for that continuance, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Lake. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Postlewaite. All those in favor of continuing this to the December 6th meeting, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It is continued. Are there any other petitioners here tonight who wish to ask for a continuance? Hearing none, we will move on then to docket number 2023-42-DSV. D. Christensen, that's 7371 East 100 North, Whitestown, Indiana. This was continued from the October 4th BZA meeting. It's a petition for standard development standard variance to provide for an accessory structure which exceeds the permitted accessory square footage in the rural agricultural zoning district AG. Could we have the staff report, please?
Yes, sir. As you mentioned, this is docket number 2023-42. Derek Christensen, represented by Mr. Vince Braun here, who's in attendance. Petition is for a variance to section 194-097 to provide for an accessory structure which exceeds the permitted accessory square footage in the Rural Agricultural Zoning District. Existing primary structure square footage is roughly 3,500 square feet. There's existing accessory structures of 4,200 square feet, which in and of itself would require a variance. The petitioner is asking to put an additional 2,460 square feet on the parcel for a total of 6,662 square feet, which is significantly over what is allowed per code. 3,527 square feet would be allowed per code. Property location 7371 East 100 North, Whitestown, Indiana. Zoning is Rural General Agricultural Zoning District. Topics of interest: we had no letters of interest, and no public inquiries about this petition. There were no issues with setbacks. And the owner is proposing to remove two existing structures on the parcel as part of this construction process: the detached garage and the pole barn. Even if he were to remove those and construct the proposed structure, he would still need the variance. Staff is of the opinion the request does not rise to the level of hardship. There is no practical difficulty. There is no unique condition or circumstance of the site that prevents the owner from meeting the standards. As I mentioned, in addition, the current amount of accessory structure area already exceeds the maximum allowed. So based on this information, staff is not supportive of this variance request.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Are there any questions for staff?
Two quick questions. So this is all due to the 2010 Zionsville, what's the term I'm looking for? Consolidation. Prior to this, how was the land zoned?
I believe it was ag, but I would have to go back. I'm pretty sure it was ag.
And was it compliant under the previous, but we don't know what the previous is, so.
Understanding was that the current zoning took the Boone County rural portion and slapped it on the back of ours, so I would have to assume it's the same as what we have now.
That's my understanding as well, Mr. Jones. We adopted the county regulations when that area was taken into the Zionsville. Any other questions? You'll have your time if that's what you're here for. Hearing none, could we ask the petitioner? Are you the petitioner?
I work with Coach Askerodis here once.
You're going to be the representative for the petitioner. Okay, then now's your turn. If you would come to the podium, please, and give us your name and address. And then if you would enlighten us with anything that you think might be helpful for us to know. And while you're coming there, are there any online attendees? None. Okay, thank you. If we should have one who wishes to speak, if you would let me know. It is online now. Okay, pardon? All right, we will get to him. Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name is Vince Braun. I am with Coach Askerodis, and my address is 1617 South N. It's just the letter N, as in Nancy Street, Elwood, Indiana. The two buildings that we're looking to demolition in order to put this building in their place. The one is in fair condition. They're closer to the home. The one behind it is in poor condition. And that's the reason he's wanting to put a single structure there to replace those two buildings. He also wants to improve the value of his property, which this building would do. And it would not harm anybody around him. It's in the middle of his property as far as that goes. So it's basically just improving his space that he's able to use and be able to park vehicles in there, as well as have a workshop on the side, be able to do some general work that he works with. So.
And you're with the company who would be building the?
Yes, we will be building the building. We've been in business for 50 years. Our main office is in Arthur, Illinois. I represent what's called the North Indianapolis region, which is everything north of 70 and the donut counties around it. I've been with the company for about 5 years.
Okay, thank you.
All of our contractors, our subcontractors for like the concrete, electric, things like that, they are all licensed and insured for that part. So, as are we.
Are there any questions for the petitioner's representative?
I do have a question, and this is probably for the petitioner rather than you, I think. This is a gaggle of outbuildings that are already on this property. I mean, it's a large group. It's 6 existing. I'm not even, well, let's say 5, not counting the grain, the steel grain bin. But lean-tos and several different barns, can this not be consolidated into one structure so that?
I did not see the lean-tos on the property at this time. I could be wrong. I know that the silo is there. I know there's a barn there.
think the
That
land
is
use
part of what he wanted to do is to condense things into this new building. So I can't speak exactly for what he plans to do with any other small structures on the property, but I know that that is what he's wanting to do is just, make it a better consolidated area to store his equipment and vehicles.
I think there are-
believe that the lean-tos are part of that barn structure. I believe they're on each end of the barn.
The barn, the second barn and not the full barn that they're talking about
The
destroying.
larger barn.
Yeah, the big barn off to the east.
So although it is called out separately on the property record card, it's, I believe, all in one structure.
So the
Visually.
total footprint then of that barn is the barn plus, in addition, the two lean-tos that are on either end of it, total.
For a better description, there's a existing barn and lean-tos that are 2,800 square feet in total. Is that a better way to put it?
Yeah. Thank you.
I have one question as well. It appears from the drawing that the existing garage and pole barn will have to be demolished before you can start the new structure. Is that
Yes,
correct?
and we'll be handling the demolition as well. And my guy is, again, he's licensed and insured. He does things all over Indianapolis for us and does a very fine job. He hauls off all of the rubbish and everything that's left over. He'll haul all that off. It will not be left on property.
Okay.
So is there something else that happens on that property? Are they farming it, part of it? I'm looking at this photo and it looks as if there's some,
I don't know if they
Field.
ripped that back part out for farming. He's not a farmer. He does work from home quite a bit, but I don't believe he farms. I believe he might rent that. I'm not sure about that.
so his goal in constructing this is to have a place to house vehicles or equipment or,
His cars, his wife's car, I would imagine would be parked in there. And then he's got, just his regular household lawnmower equipment and things like that, from what I understand. And again, the things that are in those two buildings that we're going to demolish, I don't know what's in them. I haven't been in them. I just looked at the outside of them. When my guy goes and tears them down, he just pretty much starts from the outside, and whatever the people want to get rid of, we get rid of as far as that goes. But, he has spoke about just wanting to consolidate everything to a nicer, bigger building and get rid of that, especially that back building that's in poor shape.
Would you happen to know if the existing barn out there has a concrete floor in it?
The barn itself,
Mhm.
I do not know. I didn't go in the barn. I didn't have any reason to. I will say that the new building will match their house as well. The way that the siding and everything is done on their house. They've had the house redone. They've done quite a bit of work in the house. And I think that part of that is that they're wanting to update everything so that it looks uniform and looks nice. As well as provide them, like I say, with the storage that they need to be able to get rid of those two older buildings.
Any other questions for the petitioner's representative?
Is the other barn, the existing one with the two lean-tos on it, being used for agricultural storage or agricultural purposes at all?
Yeah,
Or is it
again, I
just
don't-
more storage for?
Yeah, I
shop
don't
stuff?
know. I don't know what
Okay.
they use it for.
I would just mention that I think it's a pity that the petitioner is not here to be able to answer some
Yeah.
of these questions, because ultimately it would be important, I think, for us to know in making a decision the answers to the questions that we're asking you, and you are the poor person that drew the short straw and got to be here this evening, but it would have been very useful for the.
I'd be happy to step out in the hall and while you move on and call them and see if they can come over to answer some of these questions. I don't know what your time limit is, but
I think I can't speak specific to the animals, but just brief conversations with the owner. I know they have animals that are part of that barn. I know chickens specifically. Not really sure what else he has. But there are animals that utilize the barn to some degree.
This is
If
just
that
a
helps.
short distance from the polo fields. I don't know if they're horses or not, but it's very
Yeah.
close to the polo fields.
I don't know all the animals that he has, but I do know he has chickens.
Yeah.
So.
I know they got a dog. Everybody I go see has a dog.
There we go.
We could delay this, and you could call him. He doesn't need to be here in person, but he would be able to join us online to answer some of those questions, and I think they may be worthwhile.
I think I'm just speaking for myself, I would be interested in knowing whether this is a huge borrow. I mean, this is not like just this much over the ordinance. This is this is 2x. And so I guess I'd be interested in knowing whether would be interested in demolishing some of these other buildings in order to be closer to the standard, rather than adding to the, one more structure on that property, which is already over what the ordinance permits. So that would be the question I would ask him, were you here?
And he may also be able to answer what I suspect might be the case, and that is that this may have been part of a farm. And at one time, there was no overage, but now that it's 5 acres, it's no longer a farm.
Right.
I drive by there frequently. It's very well kept. The place looks great. And there are some fairly expansive areas there, which are obviously big farms. So this could have been one, but
That's actually an excellent point. I will say I happen to know one of the nearby neighbors, and they did get that property divided up, and that's how they got their property. So at one time it probably was the 20 acres. That's what allowed it.
I get a little bit torn between the whole, let's keep Zionsville rural, which is great. But any rural property would most likely have accessory buildings that are in excess of their house. I mean, pick any traditional farm, 40 years old in Boone County, and the barns are bigger than the house. And so I think we have a problem where an ordinance maybe isn't applicable, or a section of the ordinance isn't applicable to the type of use that it is overlaid on top of, which is why we get all these.
If for agricultural uses.
Well, perhaps the term equal to or less than needs to be rethought, so that it's within a certain range of the total footprint of the house or
Yeah.
the primary residence or something. But
And part of the reason people buy more property is to be able to have more
Right.
toys, more. And when you do that, you then have a tractor with a bush hog on the back or whatever, even if it's potentially 6 acres. And, you start to get, okay, well then I've got 3 cars, I've got a bush hog on the back of a tractor, and I've got a side-by-side utility vehicle. And then all of a sudden, to keep those inside, you have a outbuilding that's bigger than your house, which we want them to maintain their property.
right.
So,
It would help to know the uses and the intention of the need.
Yeah.
Right, from the owner.
Like I said, I'm happy to go give him a call and see if he can
Yeah.
join us in some way.
turn to the.
I understand
our
how this
council
works.
here, and Mr. Taylor, is there any reason why we shouldn't or need to take some kind of a measure to pause this one?
I would just suggest you do the public hearing first, then you could pause it, let him get that information and come back. But I would do the public and then I would
Okay.
close that.
All right.
And then if anyone who speaks to the public wants to comment about the new information, I'd love to do that too.
Very good. Thank you.
so we've got
Thank
Mr.
you.
Townsend.
And if we have, is there anyone here who wishes to speak for or against this petition? Is there anyone online who wishes to say something about this petition? Mr. Towsley still online and got his hand? Okay, so he may not have been wishing to speak to this petition, I'm guessing. Then let's close the public hearing and let's take a pause on this. If you'd like to call the owner and try to reach them. Not sure if he can join us online if he has that capability and has the link.
I can provide him with the link.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
All right, we will do that. We will pause Docket number 2023-42-DSV at 7371 East 100 North. And we'll resume discussion on this once you get back and we finish the next one. With that, we will move on to docket number 2023-43-DSV. C. Crum at 8455 East 50 South, Zionsville. Petition for a development standard variance of section 194.097 to allow the square footage of an accessory use to exceed the square footage of the primary structure on an AG zoned property. Could we have the staff report on this one, please?
Yes, sir. As you mentioned, 2023-43, 8455 East 50 South, Zionsville. The owners, Corey and Morgan Crum, are in attendance. Either one of you can represent if y'all guys want. Petition is for a development standards variance to section 194097, allowing for the total square footage of proposed accessory structure to exceed the total square footage of the primary structure on the property. It's zoned rural general agricultural. Current land use is single family residential, and it's approximately 3.5 acres. There were no letters of interest or public inquiries on this petition. We do want to point out that a home occupation permit was granted to the petitioner, allowing them to construct mini sheds on the property. If this variance is approved, the mini sheds, or at least part of the mini sheds, I'll let them elaborate more, will be constructed within the proposed building. To elaborate on existing structures, there are, in the staff report, let me make sure I'm looking at this one correctly, a total of 5 existing. If approved, I'll let y'all tell what ones that y'all might consider removing. But part of the proposal that they're suggesting is, if this is approved, I believe it's a garage would be removed as part of this approval. I would suggest that if y'all do decide to approve this, that y'all approve that with the condition that that would be removed as opposed to a commitment. All of that being said, all things considered, staff's position again is unfavorable at the development standards variance for the accessory structure to exceed the size of the primary structure. There is no unique condition or circumstance on the site that prevents the owner from meeting the standard. Again, if BZA is inclined to grant the variance, staff would recommend the following condition of approval. The petitioner agrees to demolish the detached garage once the proposed pole barn has been constructed. This should be completed no later than June 30th of 2024. And if you have any questions, I'll happily answer them.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Any questions from the board? Hearing none. The petitioners are here. Are you wishing to speak to this petition? I'm sorry, I can't hear you, but you'll need to ask that question. If you're not wishing to speak to this petition, if you do, you would need to come to the microphone and give us your name and address and ask that question then. So if you'll just be patient, we can get you to that point, okay? Yes, if you'd give us your name and address and any additional information that will be helpful for us in our consideration.
Evening, I'm Corey Crum at 8455 East 50 South, Zionsville.
Morgan.
So to answer your question, they're not miniature sheds. I started a business creating mini sheds, and they are custom, and I can make them to whatever size that the customer may want. But the issue is, yes, we have a 2-car detached garage that will house our vehicles. They have 7-foot doors. And the issue with that is my mini sheds are anywhere from 10 to 11 to 11 and a half feet tall. So physically not able to fit in that structure. There is an existing barn that we know as a horse barn that the previous owner had. And it has several lean-tos attached to it, but it is only 8 foot tall. And it also has a center support going down the middle. So it is physically impossible for me to build my size mini sheds within these 2 structures. I've not to name drop, but I've had a couple different schools contact me in terms of building mini sheds for their properties. One being Harrison High School in Lafayette, that they want a 10 by 20 foot shed. And the structures that we have, I'm just physically not able to build them in the existing sheds or the existing pole barns. In addition to asking for this larger pole barn, I have to supply my materials. I have stacks upon stacks of lumber and stacks upon all of my tools that I need to make this, not to mention a small utility tractor to move these sheds out of the pole barn once it's completed. Our goal is to not have a big lot of storage sheds available for people to look at on our property. These are built custom. So once they're built, they'll be pulled out of the barn and then they are shipped to the desired location. So there will not be foot traffic. There will not be a lot of sheds on our property.
And the what we call the horse barn, it's dirt floors, and the wood inside there isn't terrible to where we currently would not like to tear it down, because we would like to have chickens and maybe a goat or something one day. We would like to utilize that. As well as the location of the horse barn, it's on the other side of our finger system for our septic tank. So driving to access it would also be an issue. And then we would prefer if we could keep the detached garage. I mean, if we need to remove that to get 400 square feet, we could, but we would like to utilize that for our vehicles. But that's not something that we're dead set on.
Thank you. Any question for the petitioners?
So the existing garage you have for your cars is actually detached from the house?
Correct.
You can kind of see it in
It's
that
on the
picture
screen
there.
right there,
Yes.
Mary, which
Can you see
look
this?
behind you. Here, look behind you.
If you built this new accessory structure, would you be able to park your cars in it and so that the detached garage could be demolished? And it would accommodate your cars as well as your building mini sheds, or no?
Could we fit it in there? Maybe, but with all the lumber and tools and a shed and 2 vehicles, I don't know if all of that would fit within that space.
As well as, you know, things to upkeep the property, or lawn mowers, things like that would also be used in this new barn.
This specific size pole barn that we are proposing is the size that I'm building in right now. My parents are farmers and they are lending me a space to work until we hopefully get this.
In Frankfurt,
In
so
Frankfurt.
not here in Zionsville.
So, you know,
And the mini sheds, mini barns, do they go out basically panelized and then are erected on site, or?
right now I'm building them to their entirety at my parents' farm, and then we hire a company to come in and pick them up and drop them off.
Deliver them?
I have a question for Mr. Smith. So just to clarify, if they built this structure and did not demolish the detached garage, they would be 882 square feet over what is permitted by the ordinance. Is that what I understand?
Yes, ma'am.
I think you've addressed this. You've heard the staff's recommendation that is that it be conditional upon the approval to demolish the existing detached garage. You would be willing to do that. That's not your first choice, but you would be willing to do that. Correct. Okay. Yeah, I think there's a little conflicting information in one of the staff reports that shows this as an attached garage. And then another in their report shows it's a detached garage, and I believe it truly is detached. Yeah. Any other questions for the petitioner?
Just to clarify, what I heard you say was that if you demolish the detached garage, you really would not have a place to park your cars. Is that right?
Okay, thank you. Ma'am, if you'd like to ask your question now, if you'd come to the podium and just state your name and then ask the question, please.
He got his answer.
Yeah.
From
Okay.
him.
If you're satisfied. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak for or against this petition? Anyone online? No. Okay. All right. Any further discussion among the board?
I'm just going to follow up along the lines of what I think Chris was starting to say, is that while I understand the nature of our rural property development standards it kind of runs against what we would consider a reason you'd want to buy rural property for in the first place, where you're going to have a use that would not be in compliance with more developed urban or suburban locations. And given that the property owner has gone out and actually gotten themselves, which approved for a home-based business doing this type of work, that's better than many of the other situations we've had in front of us where our concern is businesses being operated out of what would be considered residential property. I have a feeling if I asked a question about how this property was zoned prior to 2010, it'd be the same kind of answer. And in the reality, what we're getting ourselves into is something we've had to deal with, is that under the previous Boone County coverage, probably nobody cared. So you've got multiple properties. One of the other petitions, if you looked at the layout of the lots adjoining it, none of those would be approved. So basically, we're working ourselves into this box that I think Chris brought up, is that everything we talk about being important to Zionsville, our zoning code is actually chasing it out of Zionsville. So we don't really support what we say we support.
And I would add to that we grant a permit for this home occupation. And then we hobble them by not allowing them to have the place to be able to do that work. And that's what this feels like to me. And I'm not sure that that's, again, my feeling is that since this is going to be used for the business purposes that he has been granted permission to do there, we should be willing to allow that to happen.
I think, as I understand the incorporation of the rural areas into the town, that we then just utilized what was already there, which means that either this was not in compliance, or as you suggested, nobody cared, and it was all done without any maybe necessary approval, but there was no objection to it. So, but that's where we are. I will say that in terms of looking at the three standards that we must meet, this is one in which the unnecessary hardship is probably addressed in a way with the business that's been approved, as well as to utilize the building that's there, which we've already heard from the petitioner, it won't work, but they would have to drive across their septic field, which is probably not desirable from the standpoint of doing damage to that.
Under the recommended motions, there's an approved and a conditionally approved. Did I cut off a line under the conditionally approved? Is there something number 4 down there?
There's 2 additional that at least show on the next page.
Yeah, that's what I just printed a bunch of stuff.
No, there's not one. It's just, that's just template language that you can read off of. And then if you want to add a condition after that,
I got
you
it.
would add it, but there's not one that's cut off.
Do you want a motion?
Yes, I think we're at a point where we've dragged this one down to the ground. We need to do a motion.
Sure, I'll do it. I move the docket 2023-43 DSV Development Standards variance to allow for the total square footage of the accessory structures to exceed the total square footage of the primary structure for the property located at 8455 East 50 South, Zionsville, Indiana, for the Rural General Agricultural District, AGB, approved as presented and described based on the findings in the staff report and staff recommendations, submitted finding of fact, substantial compliance with the submitted site plans.
Let me ask Mr. Jones, you finding the staff report and staff recommendations, the staff recommendations were that the petitioner agreed to demolish the detached garage that is currently on.
As an individual that owns 19 different vehicles, I never recommend tearing down a garage.
I knew that.
You knew where that was going, didn't you?
So you are not including that condition of approval in your motion.
Correct. I have a general outside belief that if business is successful, that garage will eventually look a little better than it does currently. But you got to make the money before you can spend it.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Postaway. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve this petition 2023-43-DSV, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion's approved. Best of luck
There you go.
with your project.
Best of luck.
And with your business.
So I take this.
We want to jump back.
Yeah.
He's back.
Any luck with reaching the? Okay, if you want to come back up to the podium, please. We'll now go back to docket number 2023-42-DSV, D. Christensen at 7371 East 100 North Whitestown, Indiana. And
Okay, so.
Steve, I think he's being promoted. Right now.
are you there, Mr. Christians?
I am, yes.
Thank you. All right. We've got your representative back at the podium. He may have indicated to you that we have some questions.
Yes.
I'm going to ask some of the members here to ask those questions again so that you hear them directly from us.
Okay.
Mrs. Postaway, I think you had some questions.
Yes, I think to be clear on which of these buildings, because there are a number of, and I'm not including the silo in this question, but there are 5 other buildings on that property. You would be adding a 6th. Are any of these other buildings expendable, or are you willing to demolish those in place of this new barn that you're wanting to build there?
The plan would be to remove 2 of the buildings to replace with one single one.
Okay, so that would be the detached garage and the pole barn that are listed here.
Correct.
And the second barn and the lean-tos that are on either side of the second barn, you would assume you would not demolish.
No, the historical barn will keep intact.
You said it's a historical barn?
We don't have it registered as such, no, but it is a 150-year-old barn, so we wanted to keep that as is.
I'm sorry, it's a 150-year-old barn?
Yes, it's an extremely old barn, the original one on this homestead. So the barn would remain untouched. We're just removing the detached two-car garage and the pole barn, which we refer to as a shop, which is another two-car garage behind that.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Christians, what we believe is this may have been part of a farm at one point. Thus the number of buildings and the size, the square footage of those buildings would have been permissible as a farm. But can you verify, is that the case?
Yes, it was the original farm here before being lotted out, long before my ownership.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, I just want to clarify one other little point. You know, as we review these, we're talking about the number of buildings on site and the square footage and blah, blah, blah. I find it, from a visual standpoint, the proposed accessory structure really only has 1,860 square feet of area, of footprint. It's the fact that it's got a second floor that is 600 square feet that pushes it up to the 2,460. Now, I understand when we talk about the existing residence, we count first and second floor space there as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
So I guess in terms of, you know, quantifying everything equally, I understand why we do it, but I think the other thing we're also dealing with is just not only the number of buildings, but also just the, what do I want to look at?
The visual
of massive structures on it. So, you know, as you start parsing your way back down through this, it becomes, while it is in excess of the main home square footage, proportionally, it's not that much larger.
And
I don't
really,
know.
the barn and the lean-tos constitute one structure. I mean,
Right,
they're-
exactly.
Yeah, they're enclosed, they.
The way we, the way they show up on the tax records is a
Yeah, if
different
you
thing.
look at them via, Google Earth or Street View, I mean, it is an old,
Mhm.
old barn, in good condition, but old.
Well, so most of us would be happy to be in good condition and be old.
Are there any other questions?
I think the lean-to is starting to apply more and more.
All right. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Christians.
Thank you.
Does somebody
if-
have a question
if-
about animals in the barn?
Oh, is the existing barn dirt floored?
There is a small portion of it that is dirt. The rest of it is concrete floor that was poured at a later stage. So there are no animals on this property at this moment, no.
And I did have a question because from the aerial photo, is there farming going on at the back portion of this lot, or is this an old photo?
Correct. It is a farm. There's a 3-acre field as part of this 5-acre parcel that is farmed by a neighboring farmer.
Ah.
All right. Thank you again, Mr. Christensen.
Thank you.
If you would, you might want to just hold on there. There may be, we'll see if there are any others who wish to speak for or against the petition, but again, thank you for joining us. Any other online who now have their hand raised? No, thank you. Any further discussion among the board members? Would someone then like to propose a motion?
All right, I move the docket 2023-42 DSV Development Standards Variance to provide for the accessory structures to exceed the permitted accessory square footage at the property located at 7371 East 100 North, Whitestown, Indiana, in the Rural General Agricultural Zoning District, AG, be conditionally approved as presented and described based on the findings in the staff report and the staff recommendations, submitted findings of fact, substantial compliance with the submitted site plans, with the agreement that the petitioner will demolish the detached garage 22 by 30 and the pole barn 26 by 28 prior to the request of a certificate of occupancy for the proposed barn.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Is it Mrs. Postlethwaite?
Yeah, she beat me
Thank
to
you.
She's back.
All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. It is approved. Thank you, Mr. Braun.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Christensen, for joining us.
Good luck with your project, Mr. Richardson.
Thank you.
Next item on the docket is docket number 2023-44-DSV G Eddy at 8775 East 125 South, Zionsville, petition for development standard variance to section 194.097 to allow for the construction of an accessory structure prior to the construction of a primary structure within the R2 residential zoning district. We have the staff report, please.
Sir. Petitioner, I guess the owner is Greg Eddy, petitioner is Gary McNutt, I believe is here. Okay. Development standards variance to section 194097, rural property development standards allowing for the construction of an accessory structure prior to the completion of the primary structure. Topics of interest: there were no letters of interest or public inquiries on this petition. The accessory structure will be used to store lawn equipment and other items to maintain the property prior to completion of the single family dwelling. I keep forgetting to go through these photos, so if y'all are looking at these photos, I'll reference them while we're going through. First one's just a location map. The second one would be a site plan. Unfortunately, in this mode, I can't zoom in, but it's on the left, middle left of your screen, if you can see that. And those are 3 and 4. For whatever reason, it's not going farther than that. So, in the opinion of staff, skipping to the staff recommendation here, staff does not see this request rising to the level of hardship or practical difficulty. There are no unique conditions or circumstances of the site that prevent the owner from meeting standard. However, if BZA is inclined to grant the variance, staff would recommend the following condition of approval. Number 1, a recorded commitment that the primary dwelling be substantially completed prior to the request of a certificate of occupancy. And number 2, the primary structure will comply with all development standards. And I will happily answer any questions you may have about the rest of the staff report as you go through it.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Any questions? Has there been a request for a permit to build a primary residence as well?
Not yet. I will let the petitioner speak to some of those questions. I know we had a brief email exchange with some questions that I'm hoping you can answer for us. So I'll let you answer those during your time. I will also say too, we put on this as a recorded commitment that the primary dwelling will be substantially completed prior to the request of the certificate of occupancy. I would like to have that maybe as a condition, as we referenced earlier, if we could. Rather than recorded commitment.
On the drawing, there's nothing mentioned about setbacks, and it appears that, and there are 2 parcels here, I believe. It appears that this is fairly close to the border, but I assume that is of one of those 2 parcels. Is that correct?
There you go.
Actually 31 square feet.
Yeah, if you can, I couldn't zoom in with it on the presentation mode, but if you look Here on this drawing on the TV screen, you'll see where it's got 31 and 34.
Uh-huh, okay. I can
wasn't
see it
able
on
to-
that one. I can't see it on the one
Yeah,
I have.
I don't know why it does that, but so I've exited out of the screen mode. So if we need to zoom in and out, we can.
So that's distance off property line, that is what those are,
I believe so.
Yes.
Right.
versus two properties like that.
Is an errant construction line that you see there,
Okay.
offset from the property line, to make sure I was clear of the setback.
We need you
The
to,
second parcel is a 5 acre parcel.
So the
Got it.
second
You'll-
parcel is on the other side of that line, is that,
This, there's a.
Do we need him up
parcel
there?
owned by property owner, the 5 acre parcel is another complete parcel to the east, not part of this petition. This parcel here is not two parcels, this is one parcel.
Yeah. Those are offset lines.
okay,
That's just an offset line, and that second line you see there, that looks like a second property line, it's not.
Thank you.
One by further, you know.
we may ask you to repeat that at the podium, but thank you. Any other questions for staff?
So this is not a 15-acre parcel. I think our petition says it's a 15 plus acres. The property.
There are two parcels, 1/9 and
If-
1/6, 1/9 and then
Yeah.
1/6.
We're gonna have to have this conversation here where we
Yeah.
have,
Yeah, okay.
yeah,
I will
Well-
be done with my staff comments and I'll turn it over to the petitioner.
okay. No other questions for staff at this point?
No.
well, that's,
Okay,
I do want to get an answer to Steve's question though. So there's been no filing or information as to what the eventual house on this parcel is
No.
going to be.
So he will speak to it, but that information was, we sent that information. I'm hoping he has it. So I'm hoping he will answer that question when he gets up there.
All right.
Jonathan, did you have anything else to add?
No,
Okay.
nothing else.
All right, thank you.
all right, thank you. No other questions for staff? Could we have the petitioner come to the podium, give us your name and address, please? And then provide us with any information you think would be helpful in our deliberations.
I am representative of the petitioner. My name is Troy Taru of True North. My address is 11650 Oleo Road, Suite 1289, Fishers, Indiana, 46037. We're here today to ask for a variance, construct a accessory structure prior to the completion of the primary residential structure. The staff says that we don't have a hardship. Our hardship would be just convenience and maintenance of a 9 acre parcel during what's going to end up being a 12 to 14 month build for a custom home. They have recently signed the contract of an approximate $2 million home. We have house plans here to review if you'd like to. The custom home builder brought with us. There is 15 acres involved, or 15 acres involved in all that he owns, but this is only on a 9 acre parcel. He owns a separate parcel of 6 acres that is not part of this petition. If the 15 acres got put on the application, that was an error. It is only for the 9 acre separately deeded property.
It does show that
see, it
way
does.
on our materials. It shows us two parcels, a 9 and a 6 acre
Right.
parcel.
We're only developing the 9 at this point.
I will say that from a hardship standpoint, what you just described does not meet the standard of a hardship. But we have the requests like that and we understand them, but I think just the convenience of having things there does not meet the standard of a hardship. But we do want to know what the plans are, that there will be a primary residence, when that will be done. And you've heard staff, their request is that there be a condition of approval, which would include the construction of a primary residence there, and that be substantially completed prior to the completion of the secondary building, accessory building.
If possible, I would like to counter with certificate of occupancy be held until the start of this large home. Not to substantial completion there. So certificate of occupancy and substantial completion of a home that's going to take 12 to 14 months to build. Maybe sometime, 10, 12 months from now. We are planning going for permits here
within the next 45 to 60 days for the primary structure.
I might be able to help this a little bit. My name is Gary McNutt. I'm with Wedgwood Building Company at 32 First Street Northeast, Carmel, Indiana. Some of this is just timing. When we filed this petition for the variance to the standards, we were not complete with our drawings yet. I hadn't given Greg Eddy and Ashley Scott their pricing, and we didn't know how long that was going to take. Well, since that time, we have been able to complete the drawings, at least their preliminary drawings. We've got pricing together. We've signed a contract. We're now into final construction drawings and should be applying for a permit here within the next 30 days. The barn, Mr. Eddy has a lot of equipment, and it was going to be really convenient to be able to house that equipment inside the barn instead of parking it on the property. Would also help us just with staging of materials and things like that and keep those protected during the construction process. So our objective here was, we didn't know how fast that was going to go. So we thought, you know, the barn might be way out in front of the house. Now we don't think it's going to be quite that far. And the construction timeline should be somewhere in the 12-month area. So if we'd break ground within the next 60 days, you know, they would be in sometime by the end of next year. And I have plans here to substantiate all that. And
Thank you, Mr. McNutt. Any questions for the petitioner's representative?
I'm still a little baffled on which lot is what. Maybe I'm a little slow down here.
There's only one lot.
I think
So
the
exhibit
first,
2 has.
the first image showed the aerial. I believe that showed both parcels.
Right.
May I approach?
Sure. Yeah, I think we, yeah,
Like
you should have.
So you see the two
Yeah.
dark squares on the.
It's-
overhead picture over your shoulder.
Correct.
It's one on the left.
It's the larger of the two, right? It's the 9 acre.
5 or 6 acre. It's not part of this. So that's Xed out. It's not part of that.
So this lot here is 9 acres?
Yes.
Because what it says in here is the property is a vacant lot comprised of 15 plus acres. Under property history.
I can speak to that a little bit. So on the application, there was, I don't know the reason why, but for some reason they were broken out that way, 6 and 9
Draws.
for a combined total of 15. So when staff put the reports together, we used the acreage that was on the application, which was 15. But it was broken into 9 and 6.
Okay.
Just a little bit north of.
So it's
the low
just
point.
the 9 acre portion.
Right.
Parcel. And
So we've approved similar situations where somebody's trying to get an outbuilding up first so they can use during the course of construction. But that's when we've been presented a full set of plans for what they're doing. I'm not particularly comfortable with the way this package has been put together, that we're not quite sure if it's 15 acres or 9 acres or 6 acres. We're not quite sure where the house is going to be, the size of the house, or any of the other conditions. And from what they just said, they're not particularly confirmed on when the barn's going to be, where it's going to be located. So my general request would be we just continue this, let them complete an application, file the permits, because I don't think timing wise, it's going to affect their ability to do anything, and it'll let us actually act upon a complete package versus pieces and parts.
thank you, Mr. Jones. I concur. Now, you may be, if there's something that is really puts a spanner in the works here by doing that, it's up to you to let us know that. I think we have had requests where the outbuilding, the accessory building has been requested, but everything else is confirmed. The permits have been issued. We know that the primary residence, the square footage will be allow the accessory structure to be of the size that's being requested. And we don't have that assurance in this case. So if there's any reason why a continuing would be a problem, please say so now. And that's, we haven't taken, there's been no motion. We're not taking any action, but I think we'd like to know what it is that your client wishes to do and what might and might not work.
I do have that information here with me. I have the square footage for the house. The barn location is, I believe, represented accurately where we'd like to have it. The house, I have a site plan showing where the house was going to go. I thought we might confuse the issue if we presented that tonight, but I do have a site plan here that shows that.
And once again, my preference is that it goes to the proper channels and get the full package. So we can act on it once.
So, and I do have a question, because looking at the aerial photo, this is a heavily wooded lot. Am I right?
It's probably 50% wooded, maybe. There's an area out in the front and in the middle there that are kind of pasture, not pasture, but meadow, I guess I'd call it.
Well, I see that on the smaller parcel, but I guess I'm not seeing that so much in the wooded. I mean, I understand and there is a hardship if you've ever towed a tractor with a bush hog on it, on a trailer, that's a hardship. I mean, it may not be defined as such in Indiana code, but having done that, I can tell you that's no fun. So, I mean, I would understand wanting to have equipment there that would allow for mowing of pasture or mowing of meadow. But I don't know how much of this space is made up of that type of topography. So
Yeah, thank you very much. That's a great point. I have a bobcat, a large bobcat and a large excavator to remove trees. So right now they're sitting out in the weather, or, you know, this winter I'm going to have to tow them back and forth numerous times, as well as all next summer I'll have to tow them back and forth or leave them outside. So that is the reason.
Could we ask you to give your name and address, please?
Yes, sir. Greg Eddy, 11796 Sycamore Street, Zionsville, Indiana. I've been a resident in Zionsville for 45 years, raised 4 kids here, had several homes here. I live on Sycamore Street across from the new development of the farm. While I'm not against that and I appreciate the development, I chose to go and get another piece because I want to stay in Zionsville. And that's why I chose that piece of ground to develop that into a single family home.
So who puts together Exhibit 2? Was that done by us?
We do.
Okay.
We typically.
So Larry, where I was going is you kind of were penalizing the petitioner for having a map in here that is not accurate. We put that together, not them.
Yeah.
So we're showing 2 parcels. So we as a town have confused the issue, not the petitioner. I just don't want them, you know, unduly, I don't know,
chastised.
Chastised, yeah. You know,
Then the second issue is I'd rather see a full set of plans for the development of it if we're going to approve a portion of it.
which, yeah, that's your choice. But I think the request that was made of this barn would not get a certificate of occupancy until a permit has been granted on the house is the stick. Like, why build this barn if they can't put anything in it and can't occupy it?
And do we actually generate certificates of occupancies for residential structures? And does anybody enforce whether or not they use it before or after having that? I know Carmel, when it comes to commercial property, you put a chair in the room, the inspector will turn around and leave.
Our inspectors will go out on a final inspection and they will grant them a temporary certificate of occupancy sometimes, but they will not give them a final certificate of occupancy until when there's a condition like this on the permit.
My preference is the same preference I've always had. I prefer to see complete packages.
For my information, maybe mine only, there is You can't call it a curb cut, but there is work being done, I guess, to put a drive back there. And I'm looking at, this shows two plots. That is taking place at the far eastern corner of the 9-acre plot. Is that correct?
I think what you see there, sir, is the existing driveway for the old farmhouse that was already there and torn down years ago. That will be, they are coming down that same driveway.
Okay. Oh, there was a driveway there.
Correct.
I
Yeah.
assumed that was all
Yeah.
newly done.
Yeah, that there was a farmhouse there that they tore down years ago.
Okay. But it is at the eastern side of the parcel, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, okay, right. And it appears that from the drawing we do have here that the driveway which leaves the road and then eventually gets to the proposed barn would continue on further back, and the house would be back further on the lot.
The house would be back to the south up on the hill. There's drawings of that already. So
Okay,
there is a place picked out for the house. That's
Okay.
correct.
yeah, we've not seen that, obviously. Okay, thank you. If there's no other questions for the petitioner,
I have one. You said you're close to construction documents. Are you willing to commit to a timeline for the house to be done or started? It would help to have some idea how long the barn would sit there alone.
I would start it tomorrow. I mean, I'm fully prepared to start the house tomorrow, and it's up to the permits and to Gary to get that going. The goal is, in my mind, to get it started in December. That's what I would like to see.
About a year and a half.
It being the house or the barn?
The house
House.
would be started in December, hopefully, and that's Gary's goal as well, to get the house started then. The goal was to start the barn as soon as I could, again, for the equipment, so I don't have to find a place to store it. I'd have to go find it. I'd have to get a place to rent, et cetera, et
This
cetera.
variance request has no bearing on your ability to move forward on this project, does it?
No, it would just cause more work, right?
How?
Well, I'd have to haul the equipment back and forth. That's a lot of work with.
No, my request has been, my ask is that we see a completed set of plans for what's going to be developed here.
Understood.
And so you can start the barn anytime you want, with or without this variance. It's your ability to use it. That's the difference.
The ordinance says it shall not be erected prior to the primary structure.
Yes, they can start.
We wouldn't approve a permit for it.
Hmm.
yeah,
And
I
Is
think
the
the variance
same
is-
contractor that's building the house, building the barn?
No, there's a different contractor building the barn.
Yeah, I think, Larry, this is like the one last month where they wanted to have the accessory structure started for storage of.
But they
Materials.
provided a complete plan for both the primary
They
and
did,
second. and
they had the permits and everything was, but they knew that the accessory structure would be completed
That's
well
fine.
before
that's, I'm not concerned about when it gets completed. I'm just saying, sitting down here on the end of the bench, like I said, I do not like the partial approvals of pieces and parts.
So your recommendation would be that they would,
Request a continuance, get
And
everything
they would-
filed,
they would-
request a permit, and then come back. I'm sorry,
no,
no, yes,
that
excuse
they
me.
would request a continuance, and then when they have got the permits for the house, come back and ask for the permission
There
to
you
build
go.
the house first. I mean, to build the barn first.
Correct. Yes. I'd approve that motion.
Any other question for the petitioner or the petitioner's representatives? Is there anyone here who wishes to speak for or against this petition, or is there anyone online? There's only one person left, so I assume you're not here to speak one way or the other.
I would just ask, do you think you could have the permits and everything pulled for the house prior to December 5th? If the answer is no, and they're wanting to see those, then you may have to be pushed back to January.
I don't know, we can have permits, but we could have everything that we would need to obtain permits. By
We
the
have it all
time.
filed.
Pardon?
You could have it filed.
Yeah,
Wants to know if we're gonna be applied.
I believe we could be filed by the next meeting's December 5th.
It's actually the 6th. Well, I don't have my calendar in front of me, but we would have to send the materials out the Friday before. So let me look real quick. I would need it no later than December 1st, Friday, December 1st. That's when we're required to send stuff out for the public notice.
Yeah, we could
Which
have
would
them by
mean to
then.
have an Approved permit, you would want to turn it in a week before that.
Is that what Larry's asking for?
Just asking if the package is filed.
Okay.
Yeah,
Don't care about.
We
the
don't
permit.
control how long the permit process takes.
Yeah, we have to turn it around in 5 business days, so that's why I'm saying the week. That's in our ordinance that we have to turn it around that quick. If everything is submitted and is accurate.
Larry's just wants the permit
Yeah,
package to
if
be
it's just
submitted by a certain. date.
Filed, then yeah,
Yeah.
December 1st.
Yep, get it to me no later than December 1st. Well, probably Thursday, which is the last day of November, so that I can print everything off and.
And by doing so, we can make sure that this project's on the next docket.
Yeah. It'll be continued to the next docket. And then I want to make sure we have the information that is actually requesting.
So you wouldn't need anything else from us other than a full permit application by the 1st.
Yep. Not necessarily the permits, unless Larry wants to actually see the permit.
No, I don't care about the
But if he
permit.
doesn't want to see the permit, just get us the paperwork needed to apply for the permit,
A complete application.
a complete application.
We're just gonna have a site plan, correct?
A complete submittal.
Yeah.
For a permit. Okay.
And if you
We
have
can do
questions,
that.
email me or call me.
Okay. All right.
Let me ask one other question, since we're talking about that, though. Are there any other variances that you anticipate needing for the home construction?
No, sir.
Are we fine with all the setbacks from the property lines?
For the barn or for the accessory use, I haven't seen anything for the house.
Yeah, go figure.
We won't be anywhere close to
Well,
setbacks on
Yeah,
the house.
that's why I asked that question.
Yeah, I
Whether
got you.
anticipating any other variance requests for the home, so. And your answer to that was no.
And just to confirm, for next petition, I'm going to take off, I know the 2 parcels were on the initial application, 9 and 6. I'm going to take off the 6. Is that okay? That way, there's just 9.
I don't see any reason why that doesn't work.
It
The only thing
wouldn't
that I
change
would-
anything from our perspective,
It shouldn't, but just to help clarify and clear up any confusion.
right? All right, I
The only
agree
thing
with
that
that.
I would bring up is just to make sure that the standards are understood about that other parcel, because if you go to sell it off separately, it's going to need to meet certain standards. So we may want to run through that exercise to make sure that if you're not intending to keep it, I don't know what your intentions are long-term, but like there's a 3-to-1 ratio, there's other standards that we may need to, look at. I just want to make sure that petitioners understand that.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for them, but I do believe they intend on keeping it.
We do. But
That's
explain
why
what a
we
3-to-1
as staff
ratio, what's the ratio
It's a 3-to-1.
of?
You can have it 3
Times the
feet to
depth.
the one at the road frontage.
It's the depth to width ratio.
But if it's a separate parcel, it'd be a non-conforming existing condition
It's
anyway.
My concern is that if it's split off, it looks awfully narrow.
It already is split off. They're two.
They're 2 separate parcel numbers.
separate deeds.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll just focus on the 9 and remove the 6. And if y'all want to have a conversation with Christie separately about the 6, feel free to. Fair.
And typically, staff would look at 2 lots under the same ownership as one contiguous lot, which I think is where the confusion of the 15 acres is coming in. But again, if you don't plan on that being separate, then it's a moot point.
We'll just focus on the nine.
Fair enough.
All right, so that's,
Ask for the continuance will be
Correct.
motion.
that's, that's correct. But I think we first need a little board discussion.
And I would just assume make the motion to approve it with the condition that they can't occupy it till they get the permit.
And I would agree with that.
I mean, I don't see a need to push it. So.
I'd like more information, timeline, where the house is. Just to be sure.
The timeline part, I think is, I mean, I can tell you that, the builder will always give you a timeline. It may not be adhered to.
Understand.
I mean, there's a lot of.
2 weeks.
But if the house plans are there and the timeline is 2 years.
Because our
or
permits do expire after a certain period of time, correct?
We could look at it
12
again
months.
if it's
12
not
months.
there.
And then the ordinance allows for a one-time extension of up to 6, so technically you could do 18
18
months.
And frankly, I too feel like we're far enough along on this one that approving the request for the accessory structure right now doesn't bother me, given what we've heard tonight. Prior to coming in here and hearing that, I would have said just what Larry did, and that is, we don't have the full book on this one. Let's wait. I think we have it, but it's not permitted. It's not applied for, or they have not filed for the primary structure. But I feel comfortable with what we have heard.
I mean, and that barn is gonna go up quick. So they're gonna wanna get the house started as soon as they can if we tie it to the certificate of occupancy. Because he doesn't wanna have to go store his equipment somewhere. I mean, they get that barn up in 2 weeks. Once they're given a green light on it.
Is it a pole? You're
Some
thinking about
clearing
building a
and
pole
grading
barn?
in there.
Yes, ma'am.
It's November.
So give it a couple of weeks for clear, but I mean,
No, seriously, that 2 week, yeah, I mean. a
those
pole barn.
structures go
Yeah.
up like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's in their best interest to file for the permit quickly if we limit their ability to occupy it. Until they've got the permit.
And I don't think, I'm speaking for myself, I don't have any doubt that they intend to build the house.
Yeah. I don't-
And,
yeah.
and I don't have any doubt that they intend to build the house, you know, in a compressed, as compressed a time frame as they can manage. So it's not as if I think that barn is gonna be built and it's gonna sit there for years with no house. I don't have any
I agree.
belief that
Well,
that's gonna
that's
happen.
the part of what you keyed in there is, that, you know, they need to get that before they get certificate of occupancy for the accessory structure, which means it's not usable until they do that. I'm comfortable with that. So we could have competing motions here. Larry, you still feel like need the full book on this one?
Oh, I'll make a motion if you need a motion.
Well, okay, we could do that as
I've
well.
got one teed up too, so.
Well,
Yeah.
who goes first?
Pardon?
Doesn't matter.
I mean, I think we got 3 for.
If my motion goes through, they're out a year, correct?
To continue.
If they get denied, when can they reapply?
Oh,
Your motion was to continue, wasn't it?
No, not now. No, what's out on the floor, if they want to request a continuance, the petitioner can request a continuance, get his paperwork together and be back here December 6th. I got to make a motion. Like I said, I do not believe we should be accepting incomplete packages. Period.
Well, I think in your mind, it's incomplete. I don't think they've met the conditions for filing, so it's technically a complete package. It just doesn't have what you want in it.
How can you have a
Doesn't
complete
make-
package
doesn't-
with no paperwork
Doesn't
in
make
it?
it incomplete. It makes it not to your liking.
I'm sorry. I
Correct. I mean, they wouldn't be here as petitioners if they hadn't presented a complete package. Our staff would
Okay.
let them file if it wasn't complete.
it is a complete package for the ask.
for the
Just make-
accessory.
just make
structure.
That's fine. You are correct. They have completed the package for what they are asking for.
Okay, just not to satisfy your curiosity to be able to.
Yeah, I know. I
which is
understand.
fair.
So
Curious
perhaps
it'll be-
we should have a motion that we can act
All
on.
right, let me make a motion. I move that docket 2023-44 DSV, a development standard variance petition to construct an accessory structure prior to the primary structure's completion at 8775 East 125 South Zionsville Road, Indiana, within the rural single-family and two-family residential 2 district R2 be denied as presented and described.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Is there a second? Hearing no second, there will not be a need for a vote.
So I'll make a
And
motion.
is there an alternate motion?
Yeah, I move the docket number 2023-44 DSV Development Standards Variance Petition to construct an accessory structure prior to the primary structure completion at 8775 East 125 South Zionsville, Indiana, within the rural single and two-family residential 2 district R-2, be conditionally approved as presented and described based on the findings in the staff report and the staff recommendations, submitted findings of fact, substantial compliance with the submitted site plans, and a condition that a certificate of occupancy not be granted for the barn until such time as a permit has been approved for construction of the residence on the property.
You be able to making that the primary residence?
Yes, I would, primary residence.
Thank you, Mr. Lake. Is there a second to that motion?
Second,
Thank you, Mrs. Postlewaite. All those in favor,
Should we do a roll call vote on this?
we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Dale, can you?
Yep.
Ask for a vote?
Chris Lake,
Aye.
Jocelyn Henshaw,
Aye.
Kathy Postlewaite,
aye.
Larry Jones,
Nay.
Steve Mundy.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Motion passes. Best of luck. We'll look forward to getting the primary structure
Consideration.
filing. That is,
By the way, another day I appreciate what whatever day it is.
And you're never coming back.
Never coming back.
that's what we're all thinking.
I will never return.
And now you know why you've never been to one.
Best of luck, Mr. Eddie. That concludes the agenda. We have no other business that I'm aware of.
But there was something about the
Meeting dates, that's correct. I think we were told last month that we would see that this month for approval.
Unfortunately, I'm not sure where that came from, but they haven't been approved yet by town council. So what we brought to you, somebody had mentioned, I believe it was Chris, to look at spring break.
Yes.
See if any meetings correlated with that. April 9th, that BZA meeting, that's the first day back from spring break. I'm not sure if that, right? First day back from
Possible.
spring
Yeah.
break,
It's a Wednesday.
is it?
Well, we're
I don't know.
Well, the 9th is actually the second.
Second day back.
Second Wednesday. We're always the first Wednesday of the month.
Oh, never mind.
So we would have a meeting on April 3rd.
It was just a simple position. Submit the packages. I need one more set of findings for the class project.
We haven't.
I have not given him a set of findings. so
There's
go-
one that came out, I thought, I
Hold on a second.
don't sign it since I didn't.
Since you voted no.
since I voted no.
So spring break is the 1st through the 5th, and it also looks like Monday the 8th. That's weird.
I think there's a possibility we were looking at 2023 calendar.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
But I have no idea. That was just in my notes.
So I'm looking at the
Okay.
2023-2024 school calendar, which says that April of 2024 has a spring break of the 1st through the 8th. They actually get a full Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, plus the following Monday.
BZA meeting.
Would be-
Like.
On the 3rd, yes. So, but it could be moved to the 10th, barring
Push
any
that
other
through.
conflict.
Stay all the way through Sunday.
So I know I would be conflicted out
Lobby the
on the
town
3rd.
The third is not good. The 10th is fine. I don't know where the 9th came from.
So at least 2 of us have You'd still have quorum if you wanted to try and,
You could do a Zoom from
That's
Disney or wherever you.
and I probably could depending on where I'm going.
Just,
No,
just got to put away the Beats umbrella. You can't have any Mai Tais in front of you when you're doing
Over
it.
the children screaming.
Screaming.
It's pseudo irrelevant though, given that our town council hasn't seen fit to approve the calendar yet.
Yeah.
So has it been brought up on their agenda and they're just not?
No, I think it's on Monday's agenda.
All right.
But it sounds like that we need to make sure that
Yeah.
we have that laser right as far as the spring break move, and they propose that the meeting get moved to the 10th, which it sounds like.
Yeah, make sure it's complete. I don't want a partial schedule.
You are consistent.
He doesn't want to have two motions and don't get seconded in one night.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, let's just go.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So yes, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Lake.
It's a full
Seconded
adjournment,
by-
not a partial, correct?
Would you second that?
I second.
We would put that in for a reason.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Let's see.